So welcome everybody. I'm Elisheva Salamo. I'm really privileged to be not only the executive director here at the Mordecai Kaplan Center for Jewish Peoplehood, but also the rabbi in York in England, which is where I know most of us are from. And I'm so happy to see you all. This is really exciting to study with you. And I, was curious about the whole issue of beauty and Esther and how beauty gets strangely portrayed. Because in Song of Songs, if you'll recall, we admire men in kind of the same way we admire women. Their lips are red and their thighs are like pillars, and there's a tremendous amount of adulation of both people, both kinds of people. And I'm sorry, this is sort of a heteronormative talk, because that's where the Bible is largely coming from with respect to this. But we have this overlay when it comes to enhancing beauty that pushes us in a particular societal direction. And you all know it. I'll just say it, and we're going to then read a couple of things and talk about how that has been made iconic, and then take a look at a few of the ladies of the Torah, one of whom definitely holds this stereotype for us. See what we can really learn about what it is that they're doing with their cosmetics. I did think to put on, some fancy stuff today, but I didn't get around to it before the evening came upon me. So I just wanted to start us by looking at, the way that we see body changes, right? And this is this quote from Robert Brain, who points out that we in the West talk about body changes in really different ways than we talk about body changes in other cultures, right? And even in my natal land of California, where we think about Americans who lived there before Europeans arrived, there is definitely a downgrading of the ideology of coloring oneself or of changing one's body, right? This is, of course, 1979, so it's a little while ago. He says the anthropologist studying a South American Indian on a ceremonial dancing ground describes the patterns of colored clay applied with pork fat and ground charcoal daubed about the eyes. But his wife's makeup, which might be exactly the same stuff, is, cosmetics. And I think that I want you to hold this idea in your mind, because I think that there is some power in the thing that we are calling other, the transformation of self for ritual purposes. And if you back up from this, because we so often think of cosmetics as a way of making the self more attractive for sexual purposes. But if you look really at Torah, and then even at rituals like a ceremonial dancing ground, cosmetics seem to fit largely within, I'm reading to you, the process of ritualization, right? Defined as a particular kind of social action in response to a place, event, force. There should be a comma. I'm sitting with my best editor in the world, and I didn't put a comma there. Problem or tradition. That's Jane, in case you don't know. She's amazing. If you ever need something copy edited, it's a place to send it. Yeah. So if you, you think about the marvelous Mrs. Maisel, right? And the ritual that she goes through to, first of all, keep herself beautiful until her husband goes to sleep, And then she strips everything off and she does all this stuff. And then she gets up early and she undoes all the stuff and she puts everything on. And so she wakes up all fresh like a daisy and, with perfectly curled hair and her face on, right? But there's a ritual aspect of this. And I would say this is really true. My daughter, who many of you know, just came to me and said, Mama, I've really developed a way of doing better skincare in the last few months. And she told me, what she was putting on and so forth. And we do have this for both genders. We do have this ideology in society that there are things that we do to ourselves that are about two things. One is self-care, right? Which is really nice. And the other is self-presentation. And there is a ritualized aspect to this, like lighting candles, like blessing our bread before we eat. And I think that this is really important when we start thinking about cosmetics in the time of Esther in particular, but even a little bit earlier in the Torah. So I'm going to give us our three, how should we put it? Our three negative texts from the big three. These are the big three prophets, yes? Ezekiel, Jeremiah, and Isaiah. And by the way, anybody who wants to, I can only see one person, unfortunately, at a time if I'm sharing my screen. So if you have a question, please pop in and ask, yeah? So somebody want to read the Ezekiel text for us?
Furthermore, they have even sent for men who have come from afar, to whom a messenger was sent, and lo, they came, for whom you bathed, painted your eyes, and decorated yourself with ornaments.
Right. All right. And then the Jeremiah text, somebody?
Just unmute yourself if you want to talk.
Yeah.
And you, O desolate one, what will you do? Although you dress in scarlet, although you decorate yourself with ornaments of gold, although you enlarge your eyes with paint, in vain you make yourself beautiful. Your lovers despise you. They seek your life.
Beautifully read. And our Isaiah text. Somebody.
Moreover, the Lord said, because the daughters of Zion are proud and walk with heads held high and seductive eyes and go along with mincing steps and tinkle the bangles on their feet.
Yes. All right. So here we have all of these decrying moments of makeup designed to attract and not being attractive.
Right. The Isaiah one says they're proud, but then the description is not at all laudatory.
No, definitely not. Right. This notion that your eyes, by painting your eyes, it is seductive. It should be noted that apparently the idea of painting one's eyes, so this is kohl and also the green pigments that you see in the paintings, and blue and green pigments in the Egyptian paintings. Apparently, these are substances that help keep insects away originally. And so in early Egyptian ideology or society, you painted your eyes as part of keeping yourself healthy. And cosmetics, I think you'll see this if you think about the 19th century. Cosmetics kind of runs between beauty and health, right? My daughter is definitely doing a health regime for her face. Is she beautiful? Yes. She's my daughter. Of course she's beautiful. Is she doing it to be more beautiful? Maybe for longer, but also to take care of herself. Yes. And so we're in a fine line area, but we can see in these three texts the condemnation of this idea that if you put paint on your eyes as a way of being attractive and not as a way of taking care of yourself, it's not a good thing. It's not a functional thing, right? Your seduction is in vain, because the point is not to present yourself differently. The point is to be yourself and not to try to enhance anything. All right. So with that, let us move to our women. And I did stick with women because we've got King David anointing himself. We have oil. Let's just say we have a lot of anointing, and ritual anointing, and kingly anointing, and priestly anointing, and anointing for the well-being of oneself, and anointing for probably good reasons. And there's the question of perfume that also comes in to anointing, both of which, putting oil on, because of course they didn't have, whatever you use for foundation, now, whatever's in it, and also perfume, which I think is undergoing quite a revival these days. Unfortunately, I can't tell you. I'm wearing something by a company called Zoologists. I'm wearing their bat perfume, which smells
Can't hear you.
interesting. Oh, is that better? Can you hear me now?
We can't hear you.
Okay, hang on. Let's get Josh in. Okay, can I be heard still?
I can hear you perfectly well, Rabbi.
All right, super.
I can't. Can anyone else hear?
Everybody is having no trouble except for
Why don't
yourself.
you do a
Jane.
thumbs up if you can hear Elisheva. I can't.
I can hear myself. Do you want to mess with your computer, Jane?
I can't hear you.
Now I can't hear anything. I can't hear now.
I
Say
can't. Try, Elisheva, try talking again.
Okay, I'm speaking now.
Okay.
Can
Eve,
everybody
can
hear
you
me
hear her
again?
now?
That was very strange.
Yes,
Yes,
now
I
I
can
can
hear.
hear her. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Good. All right. So let's go to Jezebel. So Jezebel is really thought of as this seductress. She puts on her makeup. I'm going to give you quickly her story. She is actually a Phoenician princess. Interestingly enough, she marries an Israelite king and has at least 2 children who go on to become kings as well, possibly 3, hard to tell. And it really looks like she is the acting queen and the force behind the throne. There are 2 incidents that are of note. One of them is that she brings Baal worship. So here is Baal for you, or one version of Baal. Sort of the god with bulls behind him, to ancient Israel. Here is a reconstruction of the temple that she would have built for Baal worship. She had all these priests, and it is Elijah, the prophet, whom we're going to welcome in about a month, who gets rid of the priests of Baal by having a water competition where they are trying, actually, they're just trying to get Baal to light a fire and burn an offering, and he soaks his offering, and God lights it immediately, and the priests of Baal all are vanquished, and he kills them. And then she's out after him because she's not happy that he has gotten rid of her priests. And then the other place in here is a picture of it, is her husband, the king, is looking at a vineyard nearby. And the owner of it, Nabot, will not sell it to him. And so she figures out a clever way of getting him offed so that the king can sort of inherit the land as not possessed by anybody. And you can see him looking out. This feels very much like the David and Bathsheba story. We have to off the person who's holding the property that we want ourselves, especially in this particular picture. But at the end, so her husband is killed, and her sons are on the throne, and then they also get killed, and then God ordains one of the generals to take over, and he is coming to where she is, and she is in the castle, and here's her moment. She paints her eyes with kohl and dresses her hair, and she looks out the window, and he comes in, and she recognizes that there's murder going on, and they attack her and throw her out the window, and her blood spatters on the wall and on the horses, and they trample her, and then they don't even bother burying her. By the time they get around to it, she's been eaten by the dogs. Yes. So let's just take a quick peek at some art here. This is what is believed to be her seal, actually her signet ring. It's quite large. It's very elaborately carved. It's got a lot of Egyptian-y symbolism, which would also have been Phoenician-y symbolism. You've got the Sphinx, right? With an ankh for life. So the female Sphinx with life is going to be a queenly image. You've got the two royal cobras that you would wear if you were a pharaoh. Yes, on your head you have also the falcon with the flail, and this is ancient Hebrew characters, and it's been reconstructed up here. There are scholars who believe that this actually says L'Isabel, right? There's your Lamed, there's your Aleph, here's your Yud. It's kind of all over the place, interestingly enough. Here's your Zayin, here's your Bet, and here's your final Lamed. And so this signet ring is believed to be hers, or could possibly be hers, but shows, and the reason that people think it's quite plausible is it shows so much the power that she would have brought. Now we have to remember that both David and Solomon married out all the time, brought women into the palace who were foreigners, especially Solomon, to make alliances with people. And Solomon, if you will recall, sends his women out across the valley of Hinnom to go and worship. He builds temples for them out there. So they have to walk through the place where you bury everybody, which must have been kind of stinky because everybody was decomposing, in order to go and worship, which means that he kind of canceled their worship. I wouldn't want to walk through there in those days. But it seems that Jezebel, because she's married to a weaker person, she brings her religion with her. And so here you have her signet, and one of the things that she does with the buying of the vineyard is she actually signs for the property. So that's a pretty special thing to actually have. Here we've got her, obviously not at the moment, but this is pre-Raphaelite art, getting herself ready to meet her end, although she doesn't know it. She's putting on her kohl and having her hair done. I like the Egyptian-y cat sitting there. And here she is being torn by the dogs, of course, in this ideology that she's a seductress, which she never is, right? She is faithful to her king. She's faithful after he dies. The only thing she does is put on the kohl before she is about to be confronted with her murder. So here she is, in the all in all, as she is thrown from the window. Somehow all of these beautiful clothes have fallen off of her in, honestly, kind of a seductive pose, and in a sort of, yes, she's suffering from the dogs, but if you took the dogs away, you might think she was doing something else, all naked on the ground in front of a man. So it's very interesting to see how the story has been changed. And I'm going to give you my punchline here a little bit. So this is a scholar named Julie Faith Parker, and she is looking at Anat, who is the feminine consort of Baal, who may or may not also be connected with Asherah, who may or may not be the feminine consort of the original version of Elohim. But Jezebel is a woman who's a warrior, right? You saw the Sphinx, you saw the eagle, you saw, right? She's holding all of this power. She wants to be ready for the impending threat, and she presents her strongest self. So what she's suggesting is that this is not about either subservience or about seduction, but it's your war paint. She's transforming herself from the person that she is, the queen that she is, into the queen that she needs to be to confront this particular situation. Of course, she doesn't make it. She's got some in-house spies, and she ends up on the ground being eaten by the dogs. All they find of her are her hands and feet, which is, of course, the prophecy that Elijah gives to her. All right, so moving on beyond Jezebel, because Jezebel is our bad girl. We have Judith. And Judith is a Hanukkah story. It's during the siege of the temple. Her little town is besieged by a general named Holofernes. And she has a long conversation with the divine. And Judith is a very beautiful widow. And she leaves herself in widow's rags, except for Shabbat and festivals, when she puts on her beautiful clothing and goes out into the street. So here she is, sort of unenacting and then reenacting the ritual of welcoming the holidays. So here she decides that she's going to take matters into her own hands with the help of God, and she dresses herself up. Right? She goes into the house. She's quite wealthy. She's got a house for Shabbat and a house for regular days. She puts on all of her beautiful clothes, washes her body, anoints herself, right? Braids her hair, does all of these things. And then here we've got the one little moment to allure the eyes of all men who might see her. So we have again she is dressing herself now not to meet a holiday, but to meet a person of power. However, she's disguised as a beautiful woman in the process. And she goes out with her maid. They bring food. She induces Holofernes to eat with her. He eats, he drinks, he gets very drunk. And then she takes advantage of him, but not in the way you think. I'm sure you all know this story. Here's a lovely quote about her. Her theology, and this is a really great theology for us too, I think, presents her as an intellectual agent. She engages in theological interpretation, assuming the absence of direct divine intervention. There's no supernaturalism for Judith. She knows she has to do it herself if there's going to be salvation. This enables her to act transgressively, to play the loose-ish woman, while remaining aligned with God's purpose. She manipulates the objectifying gaze of Holofernes through a performance of hyper-femininity, and in turn, she objectifies him. So there's something about the performative action of making yourself up, of making yourself beautiful, that enables you to be seen as an object without power, but that also turns your viewer, who can see you in that way, into an object without power himself. And this is exactly what happens. Holofernes gets very drunk. Here's Judith wearing white. I don't know why she's wearing white. Honestly, she's about to kill the guy. And one would think that it would be very messy, but she has taken off his head, or she's in the process of taking off his head. Her maid is busy helping her. In this case, her maid is older. Here we've got her wandering off with his head. And I thought this was lovely because here's Judith beautifully, beautifully dressed, but you can't actually see the front of her. It's like what you see is the power. So her maid's got his head. And here they are making their way back into their little town. And of course, Holofernes' servants come to him in the morning and they think he's sleeping late because he's had rather a licentious evening, and he has, but not quite in the way they think. And one of the great lines of scripture, one of his servants says, "Look, there's Holofernes, and his head is not upon him." It's such a beautiful thing. Anyway, so here the ladies are making off with his head, and you see again Judith, just beautifully, beautifully, immaculately dressed, even after having sliced off the head of a admittedly drunken idiot. But she is within her moment of power. She is holding that sword. And so I think, again, here now we have a good girl who puts on a robe of maybe a bad girl in order to do something that is essential. So she has once again ritualized in a different way, because previously her ritual had been to get dressed for Shabbat. Now her ritual is to get dressed to save her people. Ritualize the idea of making herself up, of becoming the image of perfect femininity in order to take over and win back freedom for her people. All right, so that's Judith. Anybody have anything to say? All right. Let's take a look at Ruth. We're getting into the nicer and nicer girls. Yes. Ruth, who may, in fact, be having an erotic relationship with her mother-in-law. Nonetheless, her mother-in-law wants to ensure the ongoing baby lineage. And so here is where she's saying, you need to go and bathe, anoint yourself, dress up, and go down to the threshing floor where Boaz is going to be sleeping, because he's making sure that the barley is safe, right? They're in that complicated time between when it's being threshed and when it's bagged and stored away. And so when he lies down, go over and uncover his feet and lie down. He will tell you what you are to do, right? Fairly blatant, potentially sexual moment. Feet, our legs, our feet, our genitalia in Torah. And she has once again placed herself in this state of visible femininity. I have a really interesting problem with this. Does anybody else have the same problem? She's beautified herself and she's gone to him at night. Can he see her? In fact, he doesn't even know. He wakes up and he finds her at his feet and he says, "What? Who is this?" Because he doesn't, it could be a man. He doesn't know. But nonetheless, and so here is, again, to my idea here is that there's a ritual activity to changing yourself from the person that you are normally to the person who has on makeup, who has on beautiful clothes, who has adorned herself in these cases, in order to make a transitional thing happen. So here we have some really amusing pictures. This is Chagall. And, you can interpret this one in so many ways. It's night. He's figured out that there's somebody there. He's a little taken aback. She's leaning in towards him. They're doing some sort of a dance. He's delighted. He's not delighted. Fascinating imagery. And then we have the two opposite ones. These are both 19th century. Here's Ruth. She's gone to sleep at his feet. And he's like, what am I going to do with this girl? Yeah. Really nice. And there he is, surrounded by all these symbols of agrarian power. Yeah. We've got the beating things and the scythes and the winnowing sieves and the things for holding grain. Like all of this is around, and there he is, right? And dangerous things. He could easily cut her throat with this, and there she is lying, throat as bared as you could possibly imagine, at his feet, and he is having a good think about what to do next. But then, just so you can have a fun time with it, here's the other version of it. Again, 19th century painter. She's uncovered his foot, but he's snoring through it. White beard. She's thinking, oh my gosh, do I have to do this? Couldn't I just be at home with my beloved? Yeah. And once again, we have the scythe that's sitting there, and she's waiting for the dawn to come and for her eventual fate to be known, with her bosom bared, by the way, right? So again, this idea of almost seduction that is actually about transformation, right? She goes from being an outsider into being a member of the family. She, of course, is the ancestress of King David. All right, that's Ruth. Oh, and by the way, there's no moral censure. Okay, so we've got Jezebel, who paints her eyes, and everybody's like, "Oh, all she's doing is being a prostitute." We've got Judith, who is clearly decking herself out in order to use that feminine beauty to manage fairness. Ruth, who is probably doing the same thing, but nobody says anything about it. There's no even apology in it. It is the normative thing. So we're moving kind of towards our friend Esther, in our way of thinking about what does it mean to put on your face in ancient times. So let's take a little note of Esther's situation. This is a little bit long. Shall we have a read of it?
When the king's order and edict was proclaimed, and when many maidens were assembled in the fortress Shushan under the supervision of Haggai, Esther too was taken into the king's palace under the supervision of Haggai, guardian of the women. The maiden pleased him and won his favor, and he hastened to furnish her with her cosmetics and her rations, as well as with 7 maids, who were her due from the king's palace, and he treated her and her maids with special kindness in the harem. And when each maiden's turn came to go to King Ahasuerus at the end of the 12 months' treatment prescribed for women, for that was the period spent on beautifying them, 6 months with oil of myrrh and 6 months with perfumes and women's cosmetics, and it was after that that the maiden would go to the king. Whatever she asked for would be given her to take with her from the harem to the king's palace. She would go in the evening and leave in the morning for a second harem in charge of Shashgaz, the king's eunuch, guardian of the concubines. She would not go again to the king unless the king wanted her, whereupon she would be summoned by name. And when the turn came for Esther, daughter of Abihail, the uncle of Mordecai, who had adopted her as his own daughter, to go to the king, she did not ask for anything but what Haggai, the king's eunuch, guardian of the women, advised. Yet Esther won the admiration of all who saw her.
Right. Thank you very much. So this is the Arabian Nights, isn't it? But we don't read this part of the story very carefully. Usually, we just think of the beauty contest. But actually, it's quite a prolonged experience. And I'm going to imagine you spend your year getting whatevered, and you go in, you have a night with the king. And if he likes you, you might go back. And if he's sort of underwhelmed, you'll just go and you'll hang out in the next harem for as long as possible, because, or at least for 9 months, because you might have become pregnant. And then you will be an official concubine and you'll be bearing children for the king. Right? But Esther, who gets, by the way, her cosmetics. So she's bringing something from the outside, which is fascinating. She nonetheless, because she's won the favor of the first eunuch's attention, he's being a little bit more careful with her. And she turns to him. She says, well, what shall I wear? So he gives her the right advice, whatever that is. And even though he's told her whatever it is that he's told her, we don't know. Put on lots of makeup, put on no makeup, be simple, right? Wear pink. It's the king's favorite color. Who knows what he tells her. But in spite of her presentation, wow, this whole thing has brought her to the point where everybody who looks at her goes, oh, what a beautiful woman. Right? And what did the king want? At the very beginning, we're going to look at her at the end, from Vashti. Do we remember? He wanted to show her off. He wanted all his visitors to see the beauty of the queen. And so Esther is walking right into this by her own hand, whatever her cosmetics are, by her relationship with Haggai, the first of the caregivers, or by her personal self. I mean, it's really hard for us to say. But there's something in the way that she is prepared. And imagine a year. What are you doing for a year? I don't know. Bathing in camel's milk, yes, for a year would change my skin. But then I suppose I'm a lady of a certain age. And so I don't respond as well to camel's milk as you might when you're in your 20s. So this has been a really long time. And he's been seeing girls right and left. Every night he gets a new one. And nothing is working. And so, but they're not being killed. So it's not really the Arabian Nights. But here's this moment. And this is when he sees her and he too wants her. Because what he wants somehow is, and we're going to just cycle our heads back to Jezebel for a second. He wants a woman who has the power to retain the admiration of his subjects. And that's what he gets. And in that power, of course, she, like Jezebel, slightly subversively, like Jezebel, arranges for the death of somebody close to the king in order to gain her own advantage. So we always think of Esther as very modest, but maybe not. We have a couple of lovely pictures of Esther. Here she is in the 17th century, being done up with her sleeves all ready to go. And I'll show you this one. Here she is, the reluctant Esther. This is, sorry. That's my daughter just telling me that she's home safely. Let me turn it on. There she is, looking not so happy about this whole idea, right? Getting ready to go into the king. But having been properly perfumed and unguented and whatever it is that we have. And this is now Rachel Wetter, who suggests the whole cosmetic extravaganza just constitutes the trimming of a process that goes much deeper, so much deeper, in fact, that it creates new persons. The girls are participants in a ritual that involves their bodies, but ultimately changes their identities. right? They go from being girls to being concubines. And Esther goes from being a Jew to being the queen. And somehow she's able to shift her ethnic identity through the use of cosmetics. Is she, I don't know, does she have olive skin and is it getting lighter? Does she not have olive skin and is it getting darker? This idea that if you immerse yourself long enough in everybody's act of transformation for you, you will in fact transform yourself, is really interesting. That she, who doesn't believe it, and Mordechai says to her, maybe this is the whole point of this. Maybe you're here because you could be the only one who could speak up for our people, because you needed to undergo that transformation, to put on that face, that war paint. But it had to, for her, she had to acclimate over a much longer period of time because she was not a person who was accustomed to power. She was an orphan. She was the niece of the uncle who did powerful things. Unlike, of course, Jezebel, who was princess and was completely accustomed to being in power at all times around what she was doing. So take a look at this picture, and then we're going to go back to Vashti. And I wanted to just give us the moment where he asks her to dance for him, or to come in front of him, right? I'm so influenced by Rabbi Razel. She said no to the king, if you've ever sung that song. So on the seventh day, when he's merry with wine, he orders all these people to bring Vashti, right? The seven eunuchs. Notice that none of them are the people who are going to be in charge of Esther, or the person who's going to eventually harbor her if she doesn't make it as the queen. 7 eunuchs to bring Queen Vashti before the king wearing a royal diadem, right? So here we've got Beketer Malchut, right there. That's the royal diadem. The rabbis have fun with this. They say, well, wearing only the royal diadem, and therefore she refuses. Laharot ha'amim, right? To show, to cause to see the people and all the officials who are around him at Yafia, her beauty, because she was good to look at. So he is having a conflation problem, our king, before he gets to Esther, between the ritual of state and the power of beauty. He's melding these things together. He's just gotten his officials drunk for months. They have been partying for a really long time. And now he's having an especially big party. And she is too, by the way. And he says, we need to combine these two things. That there is a power in beauty and a power in seeing that your king is in possession of somebody who both knocks your knees out from underneath you, if you happen to like women and you're a guy, and wears the royal crown and wields a degree of power. So again, back to Jezebel. Jezebel is never necessarily said that she's a beautiful person, but she holds that power in the face of a somewhat weak king. And we can only imagine that our king here is a little bit, off. If the first thing he does when she disobeys him is he listens to his advisors, not to himself. Right? There's some other funny stories about how completely inept he is in the Midrash, which we don't need to talk about. But what he's trying to do is to meld power and beauty. And she says no. She says, I am not doing this at all. This is not for me. And it costs her her queenship and her life. And here we've got, remember we had Esther there looking uncertain about going to the king, and here we have Vashti, same artist, who is now, who knows the Christian artist, but who knows the Midrash. She's sort of covering herself as if she might have to dance naked before him. And here are all of her advisors trying to convince her that she really had better go. And she's like, no. And not that he knows this, but you've got some Assyrian lions in the background, and the trappings of the palace, right? And the lion skin that she's sitting on. So if we just go up and look at Esther here, looking quite miserable about having to go to the king, you really think that they must have had a conversation, the two of them, about this whole transference of power thing. But here's another Vashti who I think is very worth our looking at as well as kind of our last image. She's living this luxurious life. She too, by the way, this is pre-Raphaelite, so we of course are going to have some Egyptian symbolism. But we've also got the lions of Persia. She has a slave who may also be her lover. One could certainly surmise that. Excuse me. And she's having none of it. She's perfectly happy to eat sweetmeats and be on her own. And she's wearing the royal crown, but she's just not moving. So she is embodying the power without having to be subservient, which I think is very beautiful. And so I'm going to come back out with us. Sorry. What I want to suggest is two things, and then we can open this all up for conversation. Thing number one is that there is something about the preparing of self that is transformative, but not necessarily about becoming sexually attractive. That's an overlay. And, if we were reading this with feminist eyes, we could say that is a societal overlay designed to reduce women's power within high-ranking situations. But that if when you are about to go, and let's think about this, when you're about to go and meet a stranger, or maybe somebody you know, but who isn't of your kin, this isn't quite holding true for Jezebel, but everybody else, right? Because Ruth is going to lie at the feet of Boaz, who's not her kin, really. Naomi's, but not hers. She's the stranger coming in. Esther is, of course, the Jew coming in to the temple, meeting this strange king. And Judith is going to also meet this strange man. So you are suddenly in a position where you don't have the same moral culture or the same social culture as the person that you are about to encounter. And the response to that situation is to prepare yourself by becoming somebody slightly other than who you usually are. Right? This is liquid courage, but it's liquid applied as opposed to liquid imbibed on some level. Or this is war paint. This is the transformation of self to manage a situation in which power must be exercised and in which you do not look like the person who will obviously exercise that power. And of course, in all of those situations, with the exception of poor Jezebel, but even then, until she's killed, she does quite well. Until then, the priests they're also killed. But she still maintains the hold that she has over the country and she still gets the king what he wants, and her sons end up on the throne for a while. So even then, she is wielding a power that is not the power that I wield, or that I can say, Eve, that you wield. Yes. And that I think this connection really beautifully, and this is really the last thing I'm going to say, with our Torah portion. We just read Truma. What does the high priest do before he goes in to meet the power that is unknown, that is definitely other than him? Well, he puts on clothes. He washes himself. He makes himself as beautiful as he possibly can. He adds scent and sound, right? We've got the incense, we've got the bells, the colors that are beloved of the divine. And he walks in, but he walks in as somebody beyond himself in order to confront a situation that he doesn't yet understand. And he, like Esther, and hopefully like all of us, comes out with not only a greater understanding of what the divine is, but also with the possibility of salvation in his hands. So I will stop there and we can have a discussion.
Thank you so much, Elisheva. It was really enlightening. Why don't we all unmute and we can chat. So are all of you from, hello, are all of you from Elisheva's congregation?
Yes.
Yes.
Not Josh, not Rabbi Claire.
Lucky you.
Lucky
Where are
me.
you, Jane?
I'm in New Jersey.
Oh, great. And Rabbi Claire, where are you?
I'm in Philadelphia.
Oh,
Excellent.
are you coming to the convention?
I'm afraid not, but I'm really enjoying this. I'm hoping there's a place, dear friend and colleague, that I can see this article, this deck, this material. Is there a place where you're sharing it?
I certainly can. We can put it up on the Kaplan Center website along with the recording of this.
That's really great. That's really great. So, two thoughts come to me. One, I'd like you to speak more about the seduction that is transformation.
Yes.
Please.
Right. Absolutely. I think, we didn't talk about Tamar, who dresses up as a prostitute in order to get what she wants or what she deserves, which is a child from her husband's family. But there is a way in which seduction is not always sexual. Seduction
It's about power.
is about power. It's about being able to influence somebody by offering something that they believe is important. And I think that is certainly what all of our heroines do here. I personally think Jezebel is quite the heroine. Imagine
Oh, yeah.
living in an Israelite culture and trying so hard to inculcate all of these people with love of a different God. I mean, that's bravery if ever there was any. Not that I agree that we should be
No, winning
worshiping
hearts and minds, winning hearts and minds.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
right.
Absolutely. Um, uh, Gosh, you say that, and it reminds me of the language of, Cincinnati is no more, but for those people who were in that HUC, Hebrew Union College Reform Seminary, the language was Cincinnati is for rabbis, New York is for Jews. And there were very strict codes on who came in. The look was so important. And so it was, just really devastating for those folks when they saw people ordained who were not beautiful to look at. How could it be that, and even with bells and smells, not attractive? So that's interesting right there. You're speaking of that dynamic. Uh, I'm thinking also of popular Orthodox tradition in which the woman is rather simple and unattractive outside, but is instructed to, Jane is nodding her head, she knows this, is instructed to beautify herself inside. So if her husband's coming home at 5 o'clock, and I know these types, as I'm sure you do too, boy, 5:44, 5:45, she's 4:45 rather, she's checking herself in the mirror and getting herself arranged before he comes in the door. And somebody actually told me to do this, and I said, "Are you freaking kidding? Are you
That's
Hell
so
no. No, no.
that's
But there are folks who are trained in that way, and not just Orthodox Jews. I remember when my dad was a rabbi in the Buckle of the Bible Belt, Sumter, South Carolina. Believe me, those ladies were made up. My mother would say, even though she didn't grow up in that area, but you take on the traditions of wherever you move. Oh my gosh, so and so is dropping by. I need to go freshen up. Really? Your best friend, you're going to go freshen up to answer a door? That just seemed completely bizarre to me. Um, Now, on the other end of the spectrum, we have the Chevra Kadisha, where all of your makeup, like the mikvah, right, is taken away and you are presented to the one who embraces, knows, and sees you without you having to prove yourself, seduce, put forth your agenda, advertise your credentials through the application of some sort of facial resume. But I love your presentation. I think it is so marvelously thoughtful, and for all of the conversations that people are having now regarding appearance and happening in so many levels and so many communities, uh, this is such a great jumping off place. It's really adds so much to the conversation. Really superbly brilliant work. I am deeply impressed and grateful.
Fun, fun. Thank you. Anybody else have a thought? It's great. Come to England, Rev Claire.
Oh my gosh,
Come
I'd
and
love to.
play with us. We have so much fun here in New York.
Oh, lovely. Thank you. I shall put your number in so I can call you from Heathrow.
Absolutely, absolutely. We'll schlep you up for a guest weekend. We can do tour together.
I'd be honored.
Claire, I'm puzzled by what you say about the Orthodox women beautifying themselves in the home. My knowledge is from Shtisel, not from any firsthand. But they're wearing a shmata on their heads.
So it's not a schmata, okay? It's a schmata if you come from a lot of the background of a lot of my friends who are going to speak very derisively of Orthodox Jews and assume that they're really stupid and tacky. But go to a Jersey Orthodox wedding where the people coming in are so
Oh,
ridiculously elegant.
absolutely.
The guys could be cover of GQ. The women walk like models. They are wearing materials like, trust me, you can't even afford to buy this stuff. They are decked like you can't believe. So there's no schmata either here or here. That's really a very trashy denigration of the tradition and the logic. And that means that the little slice of the pie that one might have been exposed to is that part that doesn't have enough time and enough money to incorporate an aesthetic sensibility. But there is a very strong aesthetic sensibility within the Orthodox community.
No, outside,
I'll
yeah.
tell you the right synagogues to go to in New York. But you goes like, and so why are you at services? Oh, I'm just here to look at the shoes. Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah. Cool. Nice Devar Torah. Whoa. Where did you buy those? Oh my gosh. Seriously. Delicious. And go to
Well,
the bathroom. Check it out.
so sorry to my England people, but this is church on a Sunday in African American communities
Oh,
in the South,
yes.
right? You wear the hat, folks, and it has a feather and it
Mhm.
goes around. And
It's all
you wear
right.
one color and it might be bright yellow with a lot of beads and it is tight and you are gorgeous and you walk in there like God wants only to look at you.
Well, you were
It's all
referencing Parsha Truma that we just read this past Shabbat morning, yesterday morning, which is where we have first mention of the Mishkan, an effort that's going to be pursued over something like 35 chapters. So what begins today is going to go all the way to March 14th. And there are going to be a lot of details on how to make a place, an apartment that is so beautiful in the human world that the divine can come and dwell and be present. So we are well aware of the tradition to create beauty in order to invite the Shekhinah. Why would we think that we only do that to our apartment rather than not only ourself, which of course, created B'Tselem Elohim in the image of God and reflecting therefore the beauty of God, you like to pay compliments to the creator. So there's a parallelity there that you can speak to. But
Yeah.
um, the Philadelphia Jewish community, in terms of its history, is a rather is not a flashy one. Remember, the Quakers came here, so there's a lot of money here, but people don't show it. It's not a gold flashy place. Um, and the folks who came here who had a couple of shekels went north to New York. If you had more shekels, you went west. If you had a lot of shekels, you made it to California. So in terms of socioeconomics, we're talking some pickle barrel economy here. And so if you've spent time visiting Stiebels, visiting little simple hole in the wall places of religious gathering or seeing their history, it's not too pretty looking because when people are worried about making enough money to have enough calories in order to be able to reproduce, and hopefully those children make it to adulthood, aesthetics gets left to the wayside. And when folks have resources, they beautify themselves, they beautify their dwellings that they live in because the family home and the family table should be a place that invites the presence of the eternal.
Yep.
So, Orthodox Jews, show us yourselves. We should have maybe there should be a Vogue fashion show and Beyonce.
There's a
Let's show it how
woman,
it's done.
I'm trying to remember her name. There's a woman who I think she's within the Hasidic community. She's on YouTube and she goes and she talks with people about their items with men. And
Yes, I've seen it. Oh my gosh, the dressing, how a man
they
dresses.
and he talks about the nature of the brocade of his Shabbat black coat and the way that his socks are and the shoes that he's chosen. I mean, it's like everything is for the glory of the divine. I'll people are in some people know these things. This is my Shabbat traveling candlesticks, right? Really cool. They're made of titanium, so they're completely indestructible. And I can do this. I guess I have to do it from here. They come apart. So you have, right,
Wow.
two candlesticks that you can use for travel, and then they become a Magen David. at the end, right? You know, so we have this tradition always of chidur mitzvah, of making things beautiful, because making things beautiful is one of the ways of being, as you say so beautifully, you know, attractive and attracted by, in that loving relationship with the divine presence. Not that God isn't everywhere, right? We also know this from Moses. God shows up in the bush to let us know that there's no place to avoid the divine.
Nice.
But that doesn't mean that
The
we don't.
lady that you follow on YouTube, I do too, and I wish I could remember her name, but it reminds me of a friend of mine who worked for Louis Vuitton on Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills, and going out with him was always a real hassle for me. It was like, I have to change. Okay, change for the third time. He says, I now have to change into my evening wallet. I said, you're freaking kidding me. One, I don't have enough shekels to have a wallet. You know, I just stick a 20 in my back pocket. That's it. But he had wallets for different times of the day. I'm just,
There we go.
oh my gosh. And the same specificity, the same art, you know, I would make fun of it, and then he would educate me, and I would realize that there is an aesthetic there that it was beyond my understanding. I did not know people worked on this level. It's beautiful, really beautiful.
So I do want to show you sort of as my last contribution, but this doesn't mean we should stop talking. One of those, like, I am not much of a makeup wearer. I wish I could do this. It should come up for you in just a second. This is craziness. Can you see it?
Oh, wow.
So fun. She does famous
Kurosawa.
paintings. Yep, exactly. So she's got Starry Night. She's got a
Oh,
couple
those are
of
her
other
lips?
Yes,
Oh
those
my
are her
God.
lips. Yeah. Really cool, huh? So,
Amazing.
you know, makeup can do all sorts of things.
That's one way to keep thin. Who would want to mess that up with a napkin?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Very fun.
Claire, how did you
All right,
find out about the
anybody else?
Kaplan Center?
I am ordained from the Reconstructionist Rabbinical
Oh, okay.
College in
Okay.
Wyncote. And so, of course, you know, the Kaplan
Right.
Center and all good things, you know.
Good.
I live, eat, and
We are
breathe.
indeed.
And more recently, am very involved in Beit Kaplan, which is the rabbinic group that is doing its level best to reinvest a sense of Mordecai Kaplan's uh, centering and make sure that our movement is platformed in a comfortable, enthusiastic Zionism. So, yeah.
Let me just make an ad for everybody. Very soon there will be there's a Melton class that was offered about a new book about Kaplan by Jenna Joslet for the Yale series on Jewish thinkers. It'll be published within a few weeks. And I've met her. Mel Sculp, Kaplan's biographer, has talked with her, and she is in conversation in a Melton class webinar, which is co-sponsored by the Kaplan Center, which is wonderful. Yes, it was wonderful to get that request. And I've seen the first two the recordings are available, and they'll be posted on our website. The next one is Thursday night at 7 p.m. Eastern, and they're wonderful. They really are wonderful. Ed Feinstein from Valley Beth Shalom succeeded Harold Schulweis, who was one of Kaplan's most ardent disciples. So it's a wonderful conversation, and I urge you to look at the recordings and log on Thursday if you get a chance. Yeah.
Thank you.
Also, you know, a couple of plugs for other things. We have got how sports has influenced Jews and how Jews have influenced sports coming up on March 8th. And then we have another webinar on the new Zionism with, God willing, two eminent speakers. I'll just leave it there because I'm still working on the second one, but it's going to be really, really interesting. And Adrian, by the way, that first painting is the Caravaggio. I'm now looking as we're are doing this. Wow.
It's interesting that Artemisia Gentileschi, who was a very, very accomplished painter and much better than her father, who was a painter, did a painting of Judith and Holofernes, in which she is much more aggressive and not just looking away the way some of these women were. It's interesting the different ways that this incident has been portrayed.
Yeah, definitely. I think, that's, we can never discount the church in Western society when it comes to portrayal of women and sexuality. It's just there. We're stuck with their theological misunderstanding of Eden. And so we have poor Jezebel being eaten by the dogs while having an orgasm. I mean, let's be real about it. Because why would she be naked, honestly? Her clothes cannot have come off of her so thoroughly while falling out of the window. And that's important. And I think, had we, which is why I bring the Chagall, by the way. There's also a beautiful, beautiful Chagall, if you choose to look at it, of Ruth and Naomi and Orpah all together in this very harmonic kind of triumvirateness. That's one of his. If we could only look at Jewish artists throughout the ages, it would be really interesting to see how portrayals of all of these were managed over Jewish time. And however, what can you do? I saw National Dog Day. Is that because Lila's curled up in the background? Good.
Thank you so much, and I hope to see you all at some of our future webinars.
So lovely to see you. Have a lovely evening. This is going to go up, so if you want to share it with other people, please feel free to do so. York people, God willing, we'll see each other Sunday night for the great Purim bake-off. Watch out for the fennel hamantaschen.
Fennel, oh. I have a new recipe I'm going to try. Take care.
Bye, all.
Take care.
Bye. Thanks.